And there we go. We have finally gotten through the letters to the churches. Do you have any questions about anything that we've gone over, anything that you that might have come up this week that you noticed? Any questions before we get started? Like I say, remember if you've heard of anything, you bring questions, comments, things that have happened. You bring them here, and we'll share them here because that's all part of our God's leading us every day in when we're not here in class. So if something strikes you, bring it here. Um, we finished up the letters to the seven churches, and I'm going to sum it up by saying that just remember these letters were dictated to John to these specific churches in this time, and that's who they're written to. A lot of times we tend to forget, and a lot of folks are trying to make these churches out to be some kind of allegory of how the church has gone since Jesus' time and progressing through history. And there are some similarities, and I'm sure you've seen them, and I'm sure we've mentioned them, that these churches have similar characteristics to things that are going on now. But these letters were written to these specific churches about things that were going on at this time. So don't ever forget that. So there's the seven churches. We now start in, now we start the hard part. Now we've got to figure out what God chose to reveal to Jesus, and Jesus sent by a messenger to John, and John wrote down to us. At this point, now we're going to deal with the real prophecies that God showed John, or God chose to reveal to John. Now I'm going to go back and remember, after all those letters, I'm going to go back and just run through. We started with a vision. If you remember back a long time ago when we first started, we started with a vision from chapter 1. So I'm going to start in chapter 1 and just run through that vision, because as we roll over to chapter 4, we're going to kind of see that this vision just kind of blurred into going from chapter 1 to chapter 4. And where exactly the dictation to the churches happened, but in John's eyes, we probably went from vision to vision. So back in chapter 1, starting in verse 9, we read, I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation and the kingdom and the patient endurance that were in Jesus, was on the island called Patmos on account of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. I was in spirit on, and that Greek in verse 10, the Greek the, that's not there. So it reads, if you're translating literally, I was in spirit on the Lord's day, and we'll see that again. So it makes a difference how you look at this. So John says, I was in spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me in a loud voice like a trumpet saying, write what you see in a book and send it to the seven churches, to Ephesus, to Smyrna, to Pergamum, to Thyatira, to Sardis, to Philadelphia, and to Laodicea. Then I turned to see the voice that was speaking to me, and on turning I saw seven golden menorahs. In the midst of the menorahs was one like a son of man, clothed in a long robe with a golden sash around his chest, and the hairs of his head were white, like white wool, like snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire, and his feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace, and his voice was like the roar of many waters. And in his right hand he held 7 stars. From his mouth came a sharp two-edged sword, and his face was like the sun shining at full strength. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead, but he laid his right hand on me, saying, "Fear not. I am the first and the last, the living one. I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of death and Sheol. I write therefore these things that you have seen. Write therefore these things that you have seen, those that are and those that are to take place after this. As for the mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden menorahs, the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 golden menorahs are the 7 churches." Now we switch over. Turn over to chapter 4, and we'll start with new material. Chapter 4, verse 1. After this I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard speaking to me like a trumpet said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." At once I was in spirit. There's the other one. At once I was in spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, and one seated on the throne. And he sat there, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clothed in white garments, and with golden crowns on their heads. And from the throne came flashes of lightning, rumbling, peals of thunder, and before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like crystal. We're now seeing the same vision that John saw, and this vision kind of blurs over from the first vision. We're seeing now this heavenly vision, and we've seen him with the 7 churches too. He is a curious mix between imageries of God the Father from the Old Testament and God the Son that we see in the New Testament. So this vision, now we've got John now, who's kind of not in Patmos now anymore. We don't hear about him being on the island of Patmos. John is beholding as if he were standing before a door, and the door opens, and he's seeing a vision that he is interpreting as heaven. And he looks up there in this heavenly door that's open, and he hears that same voice, that huge voice that he was hearing before the letters, and the voice invites him to come up. Now, there are some interpreters that are saying that this is a vision of the rapture that John is seeing when he says, "Come up," and John goes up into heaven. It doesn't sound like it to me. It doesn't sound like this has anything to do with this rapture, that God brings his chosen up there. For one thing, John's going to return back to Patmos. So I don't think we're in a position to say this has anything to do with rapture. It was simply God bringing John up, just like he did Daniel, and we're going to see a lot of connection here. Just like he did Daniel, to give him this vision. And it says in verse 3, and he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian, and around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. When you hear those stones, those semi-precious and precious stones mentioned here, remember that um, the the chief priest, when he was dressed as chief priest, he had a golden breastplate that he wore in his formal position of chief priest, and on that breastplate were arranged 3 rows of 4 sets of stones that symbolize, and we'll see this later on in Revelation, that symbolizes the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, one of those stones is carnelian, and one of those stones is um, jasper, and then there's another emerald in there. And if we look later on, um, we're told how the tribes match up with the stones. The tribe that matches up with jasper is um, is Benjamin, the youngest of Jacob's sons, and the carnelian stone was the stone that matched the tribe of Reuben. So we have now Reuben, firstborn, carnelian, and Jasper, lastborn, as Benjamin. So this is kind of another reference. You remember how many times we've seen God referred to as the first and last. Jesus referred to as first and last. We get first and last a lot here. Here we have another allusion to it in Jasper and Carnelian, the first tribe and the last tribe in order. Then it skips over and it says, and there was the throne, there was a rainbow that had the appearance of emerald. Well, emerald is one of the other stones that's in the breastplate, and it is the stone of the fourth tribe of of Jacob, the fourth son, and the fourth son, in case you don't remember, is um, is Judah. The fourth son is Judah. So, in addition to having the first and the last reference, around the throne were I'm sorry, the around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of emerald. So we've got now a sort of illusion of the tribe of Judah that's around the throne, and we all know what the what the um, what the importance of the tribe of Judah is. That is Jesus's tribe, and we see that in the Old Testament. We're looking for the son of David, the tribe of Judah, the son of David, the king, the kingly tribe. We get an allusion to that. So we've got some illusions here about the majesty of the throne. Once again, the first and the last, we're getting allusions to that. So um, the 24 thrones that are there, there's a lot of there's a lot of uh, guessing about the 24 thrones. Um, there are 24 thrones, and around the throne were 24 elders clothed in white with golden crowns on their heads. If they're clothed in white, that stands for ritual purity, and the crowns on their heads are symbolic of having a place in the kingdom of God. So these are believers. They are Messiah's people. When you see a crown, that's got to do with either God or his son. So these are people that belong to Messiah, to Jesus. Do any of you have any uh, idea of what the 24 thrones and the 24 elders? Do you have any idea of what that might be? I mean, there's a bunch of stuff out there.
Well, I think it might be 12 of them are heads of each of the tribes and that were believers, and the other 12 is the disciples,
Yep.
not Judas, though.
Right. We got Matthias in there.
Right.
So um, that's a real popular one. The 12 elders are representative of the 12 tribes of Israel, and then the other 12 are representations of the apostles. That's a very popular one. I've got no problem with that. But I I have a another way of looking at it that we're gonna keep in our mind because we never know when these things are gonna come back. Another interpretation is that um, when David was putting together his kingdom, when he took the throne and he began to organize, because that's what David was, a very good organizer. Not as good as Joseph, but David was a very good organizer. He began to work with the priests on um, doing exactly what Jethro helped Moses with, is to try and get some organization in these tribes and get everything to where it worked properly. So David developed a system where he divided the upper level priests, the sons of Zadok. These were the priests that were the closest to the temple. They had the temple duties. So they were the ones that were actually dealing with the showbread and making sure that the holy place was proper, getting everything prepared. They were also the ones that were in line for the chief priest if things went their way. So he organized the priest into 12 into 24 courses. So each priest did not have to do all of this work all of the time. They were organized to where each priest had a week on, and then he was off, and another week on later in the year. So they were on a week and then off until their time came up again to serve in the temple. So they only had to do 2 weeks of the year doing priestly duties, and the rest of the time they had off to where they could tend to their family, tend to business. So it was an organizational thing which David came up with, and it had been passed down until now. In fact, um, oh, his name just slipped my mind. The um, John the Baptist's father. Somebody remembers it. I don't. It slipped my mind. It starts with a Z. Zechariah. I think that was his father. John the Baptist's father, Zechariah. He was a son of Zadok. A he was in one of these courses, and that's why he was in the temple. So these some people think that these 24 thrones and 24 elders are those represent those priests that will serve in the heavenly temple. And just in case we need to look at that, in Ezekiel, the 40th chapter, in Ezekiel the 40th chapter, the 40 through the 41st chapter, Ezekiel, in Ezekiel's vision, he had a very detailed view of the new temple, the heavenly temple, um, after um, after the rapture, after the end of days, the new temple. And in that new temple, in the 44th chapter, in the 15th verse, this is the new temple in the new earth. But the Levitical priests, the sons of Zadok, who kept charge of my sanctuary when the people of Israel went astray from me, shall come near to me and minister me, and they shall stand before me and offer me the fat and the blood, declares the Lord God. They shall enter my sanctuary, and they shall approach my table to minister me, and they shall keep my charge. So, not only are there going to be believing priests in the new temple, but they will be, did you see it? They will offer me the fat and the blood. They will still be offering sacrifices in the new temple to God. They just won't be for atonement. They will be sacrificial offerings to God in the new temple. So there's a lot of people from that description in Ezekiel that think that these 24 elders are those 24 priests that will be serving God in the new temple.
What you said you were in Ezekiel 44? What verse?
Um, Wait, hang on a minute.
41.
There we go. Did you get that, Chris?
You said 41.
41.
F-
Verse
chapter
15.
chapter 44, verse
Oh,
15.
sorry. Oh, 41.
The description of the new temple starts in 40. Well, it actually starts in 40. But the description of the new temple that Ezekiel sees in his vision starts in 40, and it goes way on. It's still going. Um, Ezekiel, in that last part of Ezekiel's prophecy, he got a very, very detailed view of the new heavens and the new earth, and especially the new Jerusalem. And in there, we read it right there in chapter 44, those priests will still offer sacrifices to God. So, in addition to being 12 representatives of the 12 tribes and then 12 representing the apostles, and of course, since we're talking about in heaven, these representatives could actually be the apostles, even though one of them's still alive looking at it. Remember, we're in prophecy now, so time doesn't count here. So those 12 others could be the actual apostles in the new heaven and the new earth. And then the 12 heads of the tribes of Judah representing the tribes. Or, and I think it could be either or. I don't find anything wrong with either interpretation, to tell you the truth. It could be either or. So, two different.
Can you repeat what you said about the different sacrifices? What'd you say?
In that chapter, in the chapter 44 in Ezekiel,
Yeah.
Ezekiel sees, well, he doesn't see. God is telling him, this is God speaking. But the Levitical priests, the sons of Zadok, who kept charge of my sanctuary when the people of Israel went astray from me, shall come near to me and minister me. So the priests of Zadok were one of the few of the priests in Ezekiel's time. Remember, Ezekiel is right near the end of the second kingdom, of the southern kingdom, when Israel is beginning to fall completely astray. The northern kingdom's gone. The southern kingdom is starting to fall apart. The priests are not doing their jobs. God says it right here. Except for the sons of Zadok. Zadok was a chief priest, and his sons kept loyal to God during this time of apostasy that Ezekiel's talking about. And
Yeah,
then
but this isn't talking about in heaven. Ezekiel 44, is it?
no, look back in chapter 40.
Yeah, I'm talking about 44, though, what you're referencing. That ain't talking about in heaven.
All right, let me look.
Because it says, in a dispute, they will officiate. Are there going to be disputes in heaven?
Uh, there could be. All right, let me back up a little bit. Thus says the Lord God, no foreigner, no foreigner uncircumcised in heart and flesh. I'm backing up to verse 9.
Yeah. No, that's verse Psalm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, this ain't talking about heaven, is it? It was just talking about how basically God's people will come back to them and there'll be order.
Yes, but we're also seeing a, and it says, who kept charge of my sanctuary when the people of Israel went astray
Yeah.
from
Yeah, I'm
me.
saying, I mean, but it sounds like
They
it's like when the Israelites come back and turn back to, like, basically like a restored temple,
right.
but
That
not
is
in
true.
heaven, but on earth.
That is true. But remember, this vision is of the new temple. So, and this is what's difficult with prophecy. Like I said, time doesn't mean anything, and this, I could be wrong. This is, once again, this is my reading of it. Is the sons of Zadok were loyal to God, and they kept the temple as they were supposed to. But we're also looking at this through a gift of prophecy. So we're looking at the new temple also, which is, the sacrifices do appear to, they will continue. They shall stand before me to offer fat and blood, declares the Lord. They shall have nothing of wool on them, and it goes, that's more or less, let's see.
Yeah, but if you read, I mean, the way I read it, it talks about there's sin and there's unholiness and all this stuff, and you shouldn't have that in heaven.
Yeah. So at that point, we are talking about the the time of Ezekiel there, but we're also in this vision that Ezekiel's seeing of the new temple. And this is this is where you come this is where we come to a, and we're going to see that we're going to see this again in Revelation, is when we're seeing, and we did it in Daniel too, when Daniel was seeing not only things now, but things future. So, and Chris, this is just the way I'm reading this as a whole, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I think that Ezekiel is seeing not only what is going to happen if the people repent and come back, which some of them did, but most of them didn't. This is real. But I think he's also seeing the time when the new temple is there, when again the sons of Zadok will minister to God in the new temple.
Hey, Norm.
Yeah,
Hey, I always thought that it was talking about the people who come through the tribulation will be the ones doing this, having to do the sacrificing.
that could be also. And this is what this is what we've got to deal with here is we're looking at prophecy, and just bear this in mind. And I'm not going to tell you this is what I'm saying is true, because we're almost at the end here. What we'll do, let's all let's all put this down as homework. Let's go back and read that section of Ezekiel and start at chapter 40, 40. In the 20th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, and the 14th day, um, this is when Ezekiel is taken up for his vision. So let's go read through that. And chapter 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46.
Wasn't Ezekiel? I mean, like, was he a prophet in was it Babylon before when they returned? Was he like there with Jeremiah and them?
Hang on a minute. I always keep my king's list, which also has the prophets. Ezekiel was prophesying at the same time as Daniel, right at the end of the
But they
southern.
were still they were in captivity then, or I mean, not in Egypt captivity, but they were in Babylon, right?
Part of them were. There were still some in Jerusalem. Yeah, this is right at the transition. Daniel, Ezekiel, and Jeremiah were prophesying at the same time. And remember, in Daniel referred to some of Jeremiah's prophecy in the
Yeah.
book of Daniel. So those three prophets were right at the end, in those last three kings, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah. They were right at the end of the kingdom when the apostasy was really bad. And the Babylonians had taken away the remember, the Babylonians took people, not all at once. They took waves of people off to Babylon. So we've got people scattered between Jerusalem and Babylon. So we're right at the end of the southern kingdom when Ezekiel got his vision. All right, so everybody got the
So
timeline.
is he in Jerusalem or is he? I mean, or is he in Babylon?
Ezekiel is in Jerusalem, I believe. Let me read. The
You're supposed to
centaur.
know the whole Old Testament, Norm.
What?
I said you're supposed to know the entire Old Testament.
Yeah, I'm working on. No, sorry, he was in Babylon. Um, The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel the priest, son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans. He was in Shinar.
Okay.
He was in Babylon too, and he's seeing this vision. And and let's all let's all just check and make sure that we're looking at here a a vision that is, and this is the tough thing about prophecy. This is a vision that is and is to come. And let's just go. I'm going to go back and read it too, just to make sure, that I'm thinking right. But this is this. We saw this in Daniel too, where he was seeing things that were and were to come. And remember how they got mixed up there in that last group of Daniel's visions, how he was seeing this long string of things happening, but all of a sudden right in the middle it split, and the things that he saw were part of history, and then this other group that he was saying at the same time had not happened yet. So he was seeing things that were to happen and were to happen in the future. So let's go back and read about the vision of the temple for next week. We'll look at Ezekiel next week, and I'll look back at it, run through it, and let's all bring our opinions back next week, and we'll do the 40th through the, oh, what did I say? Probably goes near to the end of it. Waters flowing in the temple, the division of the land. It might go through the end of the yeah, I think it does. So chapter 40 all the way through the end. Let's go look at that and read it like we read Daniel, because we've got the gift of hindsight now. We can actually check to make sure that we've got another Daniel situation here where he was seeing things that were in the near future to him, and the far future. Us in Daniel, it was easy, because remember, in Daniel we know the history of that tumultuous time when the Medes and the Persians, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans, all that time and all that intrigue that was going on. And it was like Daniel was one of us reading history. So let's go back and read Ezekiel, those last few chapters of Ezekiel, and pay special attention to it. See if you can see what actually goes on. We know the history. In fact, we've been through it with Daniel, because remember, this is the same time. And let's see if we can pick it out, because I think if we look at it, we're going to see that Ezekiel was seeing what was to come in the near future, and I think we may be able to see that he was also seeing that new temple that is to come at the end time. So yeah, thanks for that, Chris. Keep me honest. Keep me honest.
You said the temple at the end time, but earlier I thought you meant the temple after heaven and earth.
This is the temple. The vision of the new temple in 40 is the new temple in heaven.
Oh, in heaven.
Yeah.
And Sadok is a town.
No, Sadok is a priest.
Oh, a priest.
Yeah, but
Sadok
you
was
can't you
was
can't be having atonements for sin in heaven.
I
It's
put
already been
priest
done.
of Sadok.
Sadok was a priest, and it's his sons that were charged with taking care of the temple.
So do you think in heaven that the 12 tribes are going to be separated? That everybody's not going to be like together? Because I always thought it was everybody together
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
and
But
not
that's what it
different like
says.
hierarchies and stuff. But this is, if that's the case, there's going to be hierarchies in heaven. The holy city is just going to be for the Israelites, and they're going to have the property around the holy city. So I mean, so then it's going to go back to like the old temple, where us as non-Israelites or not are going to be like separated out.
Remember, we've got odd that odd mix that Paul talks about when he talks about the Jews, the Gentiles, and the church. There's something.
It might be that the Jews, I mean, they're going to get Israel. They're going to, I mean, the Lord told them that that land was theirs. And it might be that they're there while we're in the New Jerusalem.
And remember, we are engrafted. We are engrafted we are the wild olive tree that was engrafted. So
But to what tribe? The tribe of Judah?
My guess, Ephraim.
Because I mean, in here it talks about separating out giving land to all 12 tribes.
Yep. Yeah, it's this is welcome to prophecy, folks. Read carefully, and let's see what we got, because we do have.
It also says wheresoever the stranger decides to stay, that's his inheritance.
Yep.
And the stranger is us. We are the strangers.
We are the strangers, but we are engrafted.
Right.
We're a little bit more than strangers now. So yeah, we've got a big assignment. This is not going to be an easy thing. So read last part of Ezekiel for next week, and let's jump into it there. We will all learn something. All right, we're about to go. You guys have a good weekend. Try and stay warm. Or
Thank you.
on Sunday,
Bye,
don't bake.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Oh.
Good night, everyone. Have a nice weekend.